Have you ever listened to two native English speakers talking and thought, wait, what did they just say?
All the time. And the worst part is, sometimes you know every single word they used, but somehow the sentence still feels impossible to understand.
Exactly. You hear the words, but they come so fast, so connected, so casually that your brain freezes.
And then you start panicking because by the time you understand the first sentence, they are already talking about something completely different.
If that sounds familiar, today's episode from Talk Easy Daily is going to help you more than you think.
Because today, we are talking about one of the biggest struggles English learners face.
Following native English dialogue in real life.
Movies, podcasts, YouTube videos, coworkers, customers, friends, airport announcements.
Even simple conversations at a coffee shop.
Especially when native speakers start using short forms, slang, connected speech, and expressions you never learned in a textbook.
And here's the strange thing. Many English learners think the problem is vocabulary.
They think, I need to memorize more words.
But often, that is not the real problem at all.
Really?
Really, the real problem is that native English speakers do not speak the same way English is written in textbooks.
That is so true. In textbooks, people speak like robots.
Exactly. They say things like, hello, how are you today? I am doing very well.
But in real life, people say, hey, how's it going? Or, you good?
Or even something shorter like, what's up?
And if you're not ready for that, it feels like native speakers are speaking a completely different language.
Which can be very frustrating.
Especially when you have spent years studying English.
You know grammar, you know vocabulary, you can read articles, and maybe even write emails.
But then someone says, I was gonna head out, but I ended up sticking around. And suddenly your brain says, good luck.
And if you've ever felt embarrassed because you couldn't follow a native conversation, you are definitely not alone.
Actually, I think almost every English learner has had that painful moment.
You smile politely.
You pretend you understood.
You laugh 2 seconds late.
Or you say yes when you should have said no.
And then later, when you're alone, you replay the conversation in your head.
That is the worst feeling.
But here's the good news. Native English dialogue is not impossible to understand.
It just follows patterns.
Exactly. And once you start noticing those patterns, everything becomes easier.
So in today's episode, we are going to break down why native speakers sound so different.
Why words disappear in fast conversations.
Why some sentences sound nothing like the grammar books.
And most importantly, how you can train your ears to understand real English faster.
Because honestly, this can completely change your confidence.
Imagine watching a movie without subtitles and actually understanding the jokes.
Or having a conversation with a native speaker without feeling nervous every 5 seconds.
Or listening to a podcast while walking outside and not needing to rewind every minute.
That sounds amazing.
And by the end of this episode, you are going to notice native English in a completely different way.
So if you are ready, stay with us, because the first reason native English feels difficult is probably not what you expect.
And once you understand this first hidden reason, a lot of your listening problems will suddenly make sense. One of the biggest reasons native English dialogue feels difficult is because native speakers do not pronounce every word clearly.
That sounds unfair.
It does feel unfair at first, but native speakers are usually trying to speak quickly and naturally, not clearly for learners.
So they are not saying every word perfectly?
Not even close. In fact, in fast conversation, native speakers often connect words, shorten words, or completely remove sounds.
Which is exactly why it sounds impossible sometimes.
Let me give you an example. Imagine someone says, "What are you doing?"
That sounds easy when you say it slowly.
Right. But in real life, many native speakers will say something more like, "What you doing?"
Oh wow, that really does sound completely different.
And if you learned English from books, you are waiting to hear, "What are you doing?" But instead, you hear, "What you doing?"
So your brain gets confused because it cannot match the sound to the sentence you studied.
Exactly. Here are a few more examples.
This is important because I think a lot of viewers experience this every day.
Going to often becomes gonna.
Like, I'm gonna call you later.
Want to becomes wanna.
Do you wanna go becomes do you wanna go.
Have to becomes hafta.
I have to leave becomes I have to leave.
Did you often becomes didja.
So did you eat sounds like did you eat?
Exactly. And the problem is that learners are listening for separate words.
But native speakers are giving you one giant sound.
That is a perfect way to describe it.
One giant sound.
And once you understand that, something powerful happens.
What?
You stop blaming yourself.
That is actually really important.
Because many learners think, I am bad at English.
Or my listening skills are terrible.
But often your listening is not terrible. You are just listening for textbook English, while native speakers are using real-life English.
That changes everything.
It really does. And here is a quick tip for everyone watching. Stop trying to hear every single word.
Wait, really?
Yes, because if you try to catch every word, you will fall behind.
That happens to me all the time. I miss one word, then I panic, then I miss the next 5 words too.
Exactly. Instead, focus on the main idea.
So even if I miss a few words, I should keep listening for the bigger meaning.
Yes, native speakers do this too. Even native speakers do not hear every single word perfectly in every conversation.
That actually makes me feel better.
Imagine someone says, "Yeah, I was going to head out, but then my friend texted me, so I ended up staying."
There are a lot of connected sounds in that sentence.
There are, but even if you only understand "friend texted me" and "staying," you can still understand the general meaning.
The person planned to leave but stayed because of their friend.
Exactly. That is how real listening works.
So maybe one of the biggest mistakes English learners make is thinking they need perfect listening.
Yes, perfection is the wrong goal.
The goal is understanding enough to continue the conversation.
Exactly. And the more relaxed you are, the better you listen.
That is so true. Stress makes everything worse.
Especially in English conversations, because when you panic, your brain focuses on fear instead of meaning.
And then even easy words sound difficult.
Let me tell you a short story.
I love stories because they make these ideas feel real.
A student once told me that she went to a cafe in London. The barista asked her something, but she could not understand.
That is such a common situation.
She asked him to repeat it once, then twice. Then she got nervous.
I can already feel the stress.
Finally, she just smiled and said yes.
Oh no.
Then a few minutes later, she realized he had asked for here or to go.
That is painful.
But here's the interesting part. She actually knew every word in that sentence.
She knew for, here, or, to, and go.
Exactly. But she had never heard the sentence spoken quickly by a native speaker.
So when the barista said it naturally, it probably sounded more like for here or to go.
Exactly. Very fast, very connected.
And because she was nervous, her brain could not process it.
Right. So if this has happened to you, do not feel embarrassed.
It happens to almost everyone.
And the good news is that once you start exposing yourself to more native conversations, these patterns become familiar.
Kind of like hearing a song many times until you suddenly understand the lyrics.
Perfect example.
At first, the song sounds like noise.
Then one day, your brain suddenly says, "Wait, I know what they are saying."
That feeling is amazing.
And it happens faster than people think if they practice correctly.
Speaking of practice, I think a lot of learners are practicing in the wrong way.
Absolutely.
They spend hours memorizing vocabulary lists.
Or studying grammar rules.
Or reading textbooks.
And those things can help, but if your goal is to understand native dialogue, you need listening practice with real English,
Real conversations.
real speed,
Real accents.
real emotions.
Because people speak differently when they are excited, tired, angry, nervous, or joking.
Exactly. Think about how different these sentences sound.
I do not know.
I don't know.
What are you doing?
What you doing?
Did you eat yet?
Did you eat yet?
I am going to go.
I'm gonna go.
When you hear them side by side, you realize how different real English is from textbook English.
And here is something surprising.
What?
Sometimes native speakers themselves misunderstand each other.
Really?
Of course, especially in loud places, on the phone, or when someone is speaking too fast.
That makes sense.
Native speakers often say things like, "Sorry, what was that?" Or "Could you repeat that?"
That is important because many learners feel ashamed to ask people to repeat themselves.
But you should never feel ashamed.
Because even native speakers do it.
Exactly. In fact, asking someone to repeat themselves is much better than pretending you understood.
Definitely, because pretending creates bigger problems later.
Imagine someone asks, "Do you mind if we move the meeting to Thursday?"
And you say yes even though you didn't understand.
Suddenly, you have a completely different meeting schedule.
That would be a disaster.
So here is a useful trick. Instead of saying only "what," try using natural phrases.
Like what?
"Sorry, could you say that again?"
That sounds polite.
Or "Sorry, I missed that."
I like that one.
Or "Could you speak a little slower?"
That is very useful.
Or even, "Just to make sure I understood, you said Thursday, right?"
That is smart because you confirm the meaning.
Exactly. And native speakers usually appreciate that.
Because it shows you're trying.
Right. And here is a myth that we need to destroy right now.
I love myth-breaking moments.
Many learners believe that if they cannot understand native speakers, they are not advanced in English.
That is such a common fear.
But it is not true. Listening is often the last skill to become strong.
Really?
Yes, many learners can read English very well long before they can understand fast native speech.
That actually makes sense because reading is slower and more controlled.
Exactly. Listening is messy. People interrupt each other, they mumble, they use slang, they change topics suddenly.
And sometimes they don't even finish their sentences.
Exactly. Someone might say, I was gonna, well, never mind.
Or, you know, when you just, I don't know.
That kind of English is everywhere in real life, which means if you want to improve, you need to hear real conversations regularly. And in the next part, we are going to talk about something that makes native dialogue even more difficult. Slang? Slang, hidden meanings, expressions, and why native speakers often say one thing but mean something completely different. That is one of the most confusing parts of English, because when a native speaker says, I'm broke, they are not talking about their body.
And when they say I'm beat, they are not talking about a game.
Exactly. So stay with us, because once you understand these hidden meanings, native English will start sounding much more natural.
One of the most confusing things about native English dialogue is that native speakers often do not say exactly what they mean.
That sounds dangerous.
It can be, especially if you translate everything word for word.
Because the literal meaning is often completely different from the real meaning.
Exactly. Let's take a simple example. If a native speaker says, I'm broke, what does that mean?
Literally, it sounds like something is broken.
But in real conversation, I'm broke means I have no money.
Right. And if you only know the dictionary meaning of broke, you could get completely confused.
Exactly. Here are a few more common examples.
This is the part where a lot of viewers suddenly realize why they get lost in conversations.
If someone says, I'm beat, they usually mean, I'm very tired.
Not that someone won a competition against them.
Right. If someone says, hang on, they mean, wait a moment.
They do not mean physically hold something.
Exactly. If someone says, I'll pass, they usually mean, no thank you.
And if someone says, no worries, they mean it's okay.
Right. Native English is full of these hidden meanings.
Which is why translating every word in your head can actually make listening harder.
That is such an important point.
Because many learners hear English, then mentally translate it into their own language.
But real conversations happen too quickly for that.
So if you stop to translate every word, you fall behind immediately.
Exactly. Native listening becomes easier when you start connecting phrases directly to meaning.
So instead of translating I'm broke word by word, you instantly recognize it means I do not have money.
Perfect.
That probably takes practice though.
It does, but the more common expressions you hear, the faster your brain reacts.
Kind of like muscle memory.
Exactly. And here is something else native speakers do all the time. They use expressions that make no logical sense.
English is really unfair sometimes.
It can feel that way. Imagine someone says, it cost me an arm and a leg,
That sounds terrifying.
but it just means something was very expensive.
Or if someone says I'm under the weather,
That means they feel sick.
not that they are standing under a cloud,
Exactly. Or it slipped my mind.
which means I forgot.
Right. Native speakers use these expressions constantly because they sound natural and emotional,
But for English learners, they can feel impossible.
especially when you hear them for the first time.
I remember hearing someone say, I'm starving.
That is a great example.
And I thought, wow, this person must be in serious danger.
But really, they just meant they were very hungry.
Exactly. Native speakers exaggerate a lot.
They really do. They say things like, I'm dying of embarrassment,
Or I've told you a million times,
or that bag weighs a ton.
even though none of those things are literally true.
Right. But native English uses exaggeration to make conversations more emotional and expressive.
Which is why real conversations sound so different from formal English lessons.
Exactly. Formal English is usually very direct.
But casual English is emotional, creative, and full of shortcuts.
Let me give you a realistic example.
These examples are so helpful because they sound like real life.
Imagine your friend says, I was gonna buy that jacket, but it cost an arm and a leg, so I passed.
That sentence has a lot happening.
It does. Gonna means going to. Cost an arm and a leg means very expensive. And I passed means I decided not to buy it.
So if you understand the expressions, the whole sentence suddenly becomes easy.
Exactly.
But if you do not know those expressions, the sentence sounds completely crazy.
Right. And here's another challenge. Native speakers often use very short responses that can have many meanings.
Oh yes, words like sure, fine, and whatever.
Exactly. Let's talk about sure.
Because sure can mean many different things depending on tone.
If someone says sure with energy, it means yes, absolutely.
But if someone says, sure, it can mean they are not excited.
Exactly. Tone changes everything.
And that is difficult because when you read English, you cannot always hear the tone.
Right. But in spoken English, tone gives you emotional information.
So if someone says, that's fine, in a calm voice, maybe everything is okay.
But if they say, that's fine, in an angry voice,
Then everything is definitely not fine.
exactly.
That is actually funny because native English can be so indirect sometimes.
Very indirect.
People often avoid saying exactly what they feel.
Like when someone says interesting,
That is one of the most dangerous English words.
because interesting can mean that's amazing.
Or it can mean, I do not like it, but I am trying to be polite.
That is so true.
Imagine someone cooks dinner for you and you say, interesting flavor.
That does not sound like a compliment.
Exactly. It sounds polite, but it may secretly mean you do not enjoy the food.
Native English has so many hidden emotional meanings.
It does, and that is why watching real conversations is so important.
Because you need to hear not just the words, but the emotion behind them.
Exactly. You need to notice facial expressions, voice tone, speed, and pauses.
Because all of those things help you understand what people really mean.
Here's a quick challenge for everyone watching.
I love these little challenges.
If someone says, yeah, I guess, are they excited?
Usually not.
Right. Yeah, I guess often means I am not very interested, but okay.
What about not bad?
That is interesting, because not bad usually means something is actually pretty good.
English is so strange.
It really is. If someone says the movie was not bad, they often mean they enjoyed it.
Even though the words sound negative.
Exactly. And if someone says I can't complain, it usually means life is okay.
Not perfect, not terrible, just okay.
Right. Native speakers often use soft, indirect phrases like that.
Which means if you only understand the words literally, you can misunderstand the entire conversation.
Exactly. And here's something else that makes native dialogue difficult.
Let me guess, slang?
Yes, slang changes constantly.
Which means sometimes even advanced learners feel confused.
Absolutely. Imagine someone says, that party was lit.
That means the party was exciting or fun.
Right. Or if someone says, I'm down.
That means I agree or I want to do it.
Exactly. Or if someone says, no cap.
Which means I'm serious or I'm telling the truth.
And if you've never heard those expressions before, you could feel completely lost.
Especially because slang changes with age too.
That is a great point.
Teenagers speak differently from older adults.
Very differently. A teenager might say, that's fire.
Which means something is very good.
But an older person may never use that expression.
So not all native English sounds the same.
Exactly. Different countries, ages, cities, and friend groups all speak differently.
Which is why you should not panic if you don't understand everything immediately.
That is so important.
Because many learners think, I understood one podcast, but then I watched another one and understood nothing.
That is normal.
Because every speaker has a different accent, rhythm, personality, and vocabulary.
Exactly. Listening is not about understanding one perfect version of English.
It is about becoming flexible.
Great word.
Flexible enough to handle different speakers and different styles.
And here's the good news. The more native dialogue you hear, the easier this becomes.
Because your brain starts recognizing patterns automatically.
Exactly. Expressions, slang, tone, speed, connected speech, it all starts feeling familiar.
And one day you suddenly realize something amazing.
What is that?
You are no longer translating every word.
You are just understanding.
And that is one of the best feelings in language learning.
It really is.
But there is still another big problem we need to talk about.
Accents?
Yes, because understanding one native speaker is hard enough.
But understanding different accents can feel like a completely different challenge.
American English, British English, Australian English.
Fast speakers, quiet speakers, people who mumble.
So in the next part, we are going to talk about accents, speed, and why some native speakers sound easy, while others sound impossible.
Accents are one of the biggest reasons native English dialogue can feel confusing.
Because even when two people are speaking English, they can sound completely different.
Exactly. Someone from New York sounds different from someone from Texas.
Someone from London sounds different from someone from Manchester,
And someone from Australia may sound completely different from both of them.
which can be really frustrating for learners because you finally get used to one accent.
And then suddenly you hear another one and feel lost again.
I remember the first time I heard a strong British accent in a TV show.
What happened?
I thought, wait, is this even English?
That is very common.
Because I was used to slow American English from movies and learning videos.
And then you hear fast British English, where words seem to disappear.
Exactly. It felt like they were swallowing half the sentence.
British English often has different pronunciation patterns. For example, many British speakers do not pronounce the R sound strongly.
So water can sound more like wata,
Right, and better can sound like beta.
while in American English, water can sound more like water.
Exactly. American English often changes the T sound into something softer.
Which is why water sometimes sounds almost like waiter.
Right, and for learners, that can be very confusing because the same word sounds different depending on the accent.
And it is not just pronunciation. Sometimes people use different vocabulary too.
Great point. In American English, people say apartment.
But in British English, they often say flat.
Americans say elevator.
British people say lift.
Americans say vacation.
British people say holiday,
So even if you understand the grammar, the vocabulary can change too.
which makes native dialogue feel even more unpredictable.
Exactly. But here is something important to remember.
What is that?
You don't need to understand every accent perfectly.
Really?
No, that is not realistic, even for native speakers.
Native speakers struggle with accents too?
Of course, someone from America may have trouble understanding a very strong Scottish accent.
And someone from England may struggle with a fast Australian speaker.
Exactly. Accents can be difficult for everyone.
That makes me feel a lot better.
Good, because sometimes learners expect themselves to understand every single person immediately.
Which is impossible.
Exactly. Instead, your goal should be to become familiar with a few common accents first.
That sounds much less stressful.
Start with one accent that is useful for your life,
Like American English if you watch a lot of American movies.
or British English if you work with British clients.
Or Australian English if you plan to travel there.
Exactly. Focus on one accent first, then slowly expose yourself to others.
I think that's a much smarter approach.
It is, because if you try to learn every accent at once, you may overwhelm yourself.
And then you feel like you're making no progress.
Exactly. Let me tell you a quick story.
Go for it.
A learner once told me that she understood almost every American podcast she listened to.
That is impressive.
But then she watched one British interview and suddenly understood almost nothing.
That must have been discouraging.
Very discouraging. She thought all her listening progress had disappeared.
But it did not disappear.
Exactly. She still had strong listening skills. She just was not familiar with that accent yet.
That is such an important difference.
It really is. Difficulty does not mean failure.
Sometimes it just means unfamiliarity.
Perfectly said.
And I think speed is another huge issue too.
Absolutely. Because even if the accent is familiar, some native speakers talk incredibly fast.
Especially when they're excited.
Or nervous.
Or telling a funny story.
Exactly. Native speakers often speed up when they are emotional.
Which means the conversation becomes even harder to follow.
Imagine someone saying slowly, "I was going to call you, but then I got busy."
Easy enough.
Now imagine someone saying it quickly. "I was going to call you, but then I got busy."
That sounds very different.
Exactly. The words connect together, sounds disappear, and the rhythm changes.
Which means fast English is not just slow English spoken faster.
That is a brilliant point.
Because when people speak fast, they actually change the sounds.
Exactly. Going to becomes gonna. You becomes ya. Want to becomes wanna.
So if you only practice with slow, perfect English, real conversations can feel shocking.
Exactly. That's why listening practice should include natural speed.
But I think many learners avoid fast English because it feels scary.
They do, and that's understandable.
Because when you hear something too difficult, you feel like giving up.
But here's the secret. You don't need to understand everything immediately.
Then what should you do?
Listen multiple times.
That's such a simple idea, but so powerful.
The first time, focus on the general meaning.
The second time, notice key words.
The third time, pay attention to pronunciation and connected speech.
So instead of expecting instant understanding, you slowly build understanding.
Exactly. That's how listening improves.
I think a lot of learners expect listening to work like magic.
Yes, they think if I am advanced enough, I should understand everything the first time.
But that is not realistic.
Not at all. Even native speakers replay voice messages sometimes,
That is true. I do that all the time.
especially if the person is speaking too fast, using slang, or talking in a noisy place.
Noise is another huge problem.
Definitely. Real life is not like an English classroom.
There's traffic, music, people talking, phones ringing,
Exactly. And all of that makes listening harder,
which is why some learners understand English perfectly at home with headphones.
but struggle in restaurants, airports, or crowded places.
That difference is so real.
And again, it does not mean your English is bad.
It just means real life listening is more difficult.
Exactly. Here is a useful tip for everyone watching.
I love practical tips.
Practice listening in different situations.
Like what?
Listen with headphones sometimes,
Okay,
but also listen without headphones.
interesting.
Listen in a quiet room.
And also while walking outside.
Watch videos with subtitles.
Then watch the same video without subtitles.
Listen to slow podcasts,
Then challenge yourself with faster ones.
because your brain needs variety.
That makes so much sense.
If you only practice in perfect conditions, real-life English will always feel harder.
So you need to train for reality.
Exactly.
Kind of like exercise.
Perfect comparison.
comparison.
If you only lift very light weights, you never get stronger,
Right, you need to challenge yourself a little.
but not so much that you feel hopeless.
Exactly. The ideal listening material should be difficult enough to challenge you, but not so difficult that you understand nothing.
Because if you understand nothing, you can't learn.
Right, you need enough understanding to stay motivated.
That balance is really important.
And here is another interesting thing about native dialogue.
What is that?
Native speakers often interrupt each other.
Oh yes, especially in group conversations.
Someone starts a sentence,
Then another person jumps in.
then someone laughs.
Then the topic changes completely,
Exactly. Real conversations are messy.
which is very different from textbook listening exercises.
In textbooks, people wait politely for each other to finish,
But in real life, people talk over each other all the time,
especially friends and family.
which can make conversations feel impossible to follow.
But once again, exposure helps.
The more messy conversations you hear, the more comfortable you become,
Exactly. Your brain learns to follow the rhythm.
and you stop expecting perfect, clean English.
Right, because real English is not perfect.
It is fast, emotional, messy, funny, interrupted, and sometimes confusing.
But that is also what makes it beautiful.
I like that.
Because when you finally understand a real native conversation, it feels amazing.
It feels like entering a new world.
Exactly. Suddenly movies are funnier,
Podcasts become easier,
conversations become less stressful,
and you stop feeling like English is something far away from you.
it starts feeling natural.
And in the next part, we are going to talk about how you can train your ears more effectively.
Because some listening habits help a lot.
And some listening habits secretly slow your progress down.
So if you really want to understand native English dialogue, the next section might be the most important one yet.
If you want to understand native English dialogue faster, you need to stop practicing English like a student and start practicing like a listener.
That sounds important.
It is, because many learners spend years studying grammar but very little time actually listening.
Which is strange because in real life, listening is one of the skills we use the most.
Exactly. Think about it. In a normal conversation, you spend more time listening than speaking.
That is true.
But many learners practice reading and writing much more than listening.
Probably because reading feels easier.
Yes, reading gives you time. You can stop, think, reread, translate.
But listening happens immediately.
Exactly. You cannot pause a real conversation and ask the other person to freeze for 30 seconds while you think.
Although honestly, that would be amazing sometimes.
It would definitely make life easier.
So what is the biggest mistake people make when practicing listening?
Passive listening.
What does that mean?
It means listening to English in the background without really paying attention.
Like playing an English podcast while cooking, cleaning, or scrolling on your phone?
Exactly. Passive listening is not useless, but it is not enough by itself.
Because your brain is only half focused.
Right. If you want faster improvement, you need active listening too.
What does active listening look like?
Active listening means you really focus on what you hear.
So not just hearing English, but actually working with it.
Exactly. Let's say you watch a short video in English.
Okay,
First, listen once without subtitles,
even if I don't understand everything,
especially if you do not understand everything. Focus on the general meaning.
then what?
Listen again with subtitles.
So I can compare what I heard with the real words.
Exactly. Then listen a third time without subtitles again.
That actually sounds really effective.
It is, because now your brain starts connecting the sounds with the meaning.
Instead of just reading and hoping for the best.
Exactly. And here's another great technique.
Tell me.
Shadowing.
I have heard that word before, but I don't really know what it means.
Shadowing means listening to a native speaker and repeating what they say immediately after them.
Like copying their rhythm and pronunciation?
Exactly. You copy the speed, tone, emotion, and connected speech.
That sounds difficult.
It is difficult at first, but it is one of the best ways to train your ears.
Because you start noticing how native speakers really sound.
Right. You stop seeing English as separate words and start hearing it as connected phrases.
Can you give an example?
Sure. Imagine the speaker says, "I was going to call you later."
I repeat, I was going to call you later.
Exactly. And over time, you begin to feel the rhythm of native English.
That probably helps with speaking too.
Absolutely. Listening and speaking are deeply connected.
So the better you understand native speech, the more natural your own speech becomes.
Exactly. And here's another mistake people make.
What is it?
They only listen to content that is too difficult.
Oh yes, I think a lot of learners do that.
They jump straight into fast movies, complicated interviews, or advanced podcasts.
Then they understand almost nothing and feel terrible.
Exactly. Challenging yourself is good, but if the material is too hard, your brain cannot learn effectively.
So what should people do instead?
Use the 80% rule.
What is that?
Listen to content where you can understand around 80% of the meaning.
Not too easy, not too hard.
Exactly. If something is too easy, you do not improve.
But if something is too difficult, you get frustrated.
Right. The best learning happens in the middle.
That makes so much sense.
Let me tell you about a learner named Daniel.
Okay,
Daniel loved watching crime shows in English.
that sounds fun.
But there was one problem. The shows were too difficult.
Too much slang?
Too much slang, too many accents, too much fast dialogue.
So what happened?
He watched for hours every week, but he barely improved because he understood almost nothing.
That's frustrating.
Very frustrating. Then he changed his approach.
What did he do?
He started watching simple YouTube videos with clear speech and subtitles.
Probably less exciting at first.
Maybe, but after a few months, his listening improved so much that he could return to the crime shows and understand far more.
So sometimes the fastest way to improve is actually to slow down first.
Exactly. That's such an important lesson.
And I think people compare themselves too much too.
Absolutely.
They see someone online who speaks fluent English and think, why am I not there yet?
But they do not see the years of practice behind that fluency.
Right, they only see the final result.
Exactly. Listening takes time,
But every day of practice adds something.
even if it doesn't feel like it immediately.
I think that's important because sometimes progress feels invisible.
It does, especially with listening.
One day you feel terrible.
Then suddenly, a few weeks later, you realize you understood a conversation that used to seem impossible.
That feeling is incredible.
It really is.
And I think there's another powerful strategy people forget.
What is that?
Repeating the same content.
Yes, that is one of the best methods.
Because many learners think they always need new material.
But repetition is powerful.
If you listen to the same podcast episode 5 times, you notice new things every time.
Exactly. The first time you understand maybe 30%.
The second time, maybe 50%.
The third time you start hearing details you completely missed before,
And by the 5th time, you almost feel like you can predict the conversation.
which is amazing for building confidence.
Because suddenly English feels familiar instead of scary.
Exactly. Familiarity is powerful.
I think that's one reason children learn language so well.
Definitely. Children hear the same songs, stories, and phrases again and again.
They are not embarrassed by repetition.
Exactly. Adults often want everything to happen quickly.
But language doesn't work that way.
Right. Repetition creates fluency.
Here's a question for everyone watching.
Go ahead.
How often do you repeat the same English content?
That's a great question.
Because if your answer is never, you may be missing a huge opportunity.
Definitely. Repeating content can be boring sometimes, but it works.
And if you want to make it more interesting, you can repeat content in different ways.
Great idea.
One day, listen normally.
The next day, focus only on pronunciation.
The next day, write down useful phrases.
Then try shadowing.
Then try repeating the conversation from memory.
Exactly. Suddenly, one piece of content becomes 5 different lessons.
That is smart.
And here's another helpful idea.
What is it?
Choose content you actually enjoy.
That is huge.
Because if you hate the content, you will not stay consistent.
So if you love cooking, watch cooking videos in English.
If you love football, watch football interviews.
If you love travel, watch travel vlogs.
Exactly. The more interested you are, the more focused your brain becomes.
And the more likely you are to continue.
Right. Motivation matters.
That is why Talk Easy Daily is so useful.
Because we are trying to make English feel interesting, natural, and real.
Not boring and robotic.
Exactly. Because if English feels enjoyable, you learn faster.
And if you are enjoying this episode so far, make sure you subscribe to Talk Easy Daily because we create these kinds of conversations to help you understand real English more naturally.
And if you've ever struggled to understand a native speaker, leave a comment below and tell us about the situation.
Was it a movie?
A conversation?
A customer at work?
An airport announcement?
We would love to hear your story.
Because the truth is, almost everyone has had that moment where English suddenly felt impossible.
But the people who improve are not the people who never struggle.
They are the people who keep listening anyway.
And in the next part, we are going to share real stories and situations where learners misunderstood native English.
Some of them are funny,
Some are embarrassing,
and some will probably remind you of your own experiences.
which means you are definitely going to want to stay for the next part.
One of the funniest things about learning English is that sometimes you misunderstand something completely and only realize it later.
Usually much later.
Sometimes hours later.
Sometimes in the middle of the night when your brain suddenly says, wait, that is what they meant?
Exactly.
I think every English learner has at least one embarrassing story like that.
Definitely. And honestly, these stories are painful in the moment, but later they become funny.
Hopefully.
Let me tell you about a learner named Sophia.
Okay.
Sophia was working at a small office in Canada. One day, her coworker walked past her desk and said, "Hey, what's up?"
That is one of the most common English greetings.
Right, but Sophia thought the coworker was asking her to look up.
No way.
Yes, so she looked at the ceiling.
That is amazing.
Her coworker looked confused and said, nothing.
That is both embarrassing and hilarious.
But it makes sense. Sophia knew the word up, so she interpreted the sentence literally.
instead of understanding that what's up usually just means how are you or what's happening.
Exactly. And after that moment, she never forgot that phrase again.
Honestly, sometimes the most embarrassing moments teach you the fastest.
Very true.
I had a similar experience once with the phrase, take a seat.
What happened?
Someone invited me into a room and said, take a seat.
And?
For 1 second, I thought they literally wanted me to pick up the chair.
That is amazing.
Thankfully, I realized what they meant before I did something ridiculous.
Imagine carrying the chair across the room.
That would have been unforgettable.
But again, this happens because native English is full of phrases that do not mean exactly what the words suggest.
Right. If someone says take your time, they do not mean physically grab time.
They mean do not hurry.
And if someone says give me a hand, they do not want your actual hand.
They want help.
English can be so dramatic sometimes.
It really can.
What is another misunderstanding story?
One learner was in an American restaurant, and the waiter asked, "You guys ready to order?"
That sounds simple.
But the learner only understood the word ready.
So what happened?
He smiled and said, "Yes, I'm ready."
Oh no.
Then the waiter stood there waiting.
Because the waiter wanted the food order.
Exactly. But the learner thought the waiter was just asking if he felt ready.
That is such a real situation.
It is. And those are the moments that make you realize how important context is.
Because the same word can mean different things in different situations.
Exactly. Ready in a restaurant is different from ready before a test.
Or ready before leaving the house.
Right. Context changes everything.
Here is another difficult situation. Phone calls.
Oh yes, phone calls are scary for many learners.
Because you cannot see the other person's face or body language.
Exactly. You lose all the visual clues.
And if the connection is bad, it becomes even harder.
One learner told me she answered a phone call from a customer who said, "Can I speak to Mike?"
Okay,
But because the sound quality was bad, she thought he said, "Can I speak to my cat?"
that is incredible.
She paused and said, "Your cat?"
I would love to hear that conversation.
The customer was very confused.
Of course.
Eventually, they both laughed about it.
And honestly, laughter is important.
Definitely. Because if you are too afraid of making mistakes, you stop speaking and listening completely.
That is true. Fear can freeze you.
But mistakes are normal,
Even funny mistakes.
especially funny mistakes.
Because they often become great memories later.
Let me tell you another story.
Go ahead.
A learner in England was invited to someone's house for dinner.
That already sounds stressful.
During the meal, the host asked, "Would you like seconds?"
Oh, that is a tricky one.
Very tricky. The learner thought seconds meant actual time.
So what did they say?
They looked confused and said, "Seconds for what?"
That is so understandable though.
It is. But in this context, seconds means an extra serving of food.
So the host was asking if they wanted more to eat.
Exactly.
That is a perfect example of why real English feels difficult.
Because words change meaning depending on the situation.
And because native speakers assume everyone understands those hidden meanings.
Right. They do not stop and explain.
Which means English learners have to slowly build that knowledge through experience.
Exactly. And that is why exposure matters so much.
The more situations you experience, the more phrases become familiar.
Right. Let's do a quick game.
I love these.
If someone says, "I'm just looking," what do they mean?
Usually they mean they are not ready to buy anything yet.
Exactly. And if a store worker asks, "Can I help you find anything?"
They are not asking if you lost something.
Right. They are offering help.
What about I'm good?
That's a great one.
Because I'm good can mean I'm fine.
Or, "No thank you."
Exactly. If someone offers you coffee and you say I'm good, it often means you do not want any.
Perfect.
Here is one more. If someone says I'll let you go, what do they mean? They usually mean they are ending the conversation, not that they were physically holding you prisoner.
Exactly.
Native English really is full of hidden meanings.
It is. And that is why you shouldn't panic when you misunderstand something.
Because misunderstandings are part of learning.
Exactly. In fact, every misunderstanding teaches you something valuable.
Usually something you never forget.
Right. And here's something important for everyone watching.
What is it?
Stop seeing misunderstandings as proof that you are bad at English.
That is such an important message.
Because if you think every mistake means failure, you lose confidence.
But if you see mistakes as part of the process, you stay motivated.
Exactly. Every difficult conversation is helping you improve.
Even when it feels uncomfortable.
Especially when it feels uncomfortable.
Because difficult moments force your brain to adapt.
Right. Think about how children learn language.
They misunderstand things all the time.
Constantly.
But they are not embarrassed.
Exactly. They just keep listening, keep asking, and keep learning.
Adults should probably do more of that.
Definitely.
I think another problem is that many learners are too hard on themselves.
Absolutely. They expect themselves to understand every word, every accent, every joke.
Which is impossible.
Exactly.
Real conversations are messy, even for native speakers.
People mumble, interrupt, use slang, speak too fast.
And sometimes they say things that are not clear at all.
That is true. Some people are difficult to understand in every language.
Exactly.
So if someone is hard to understand, it does not always mean your English is weak.
Right. Sometimes it just means that person is not speaking clearly.
That actually makes me feel much better.
Good, because confidence matters.
When you feel relaxed, you understand more,
Exactly. When you panic, your listening gets worse.
which creates a terrible cycle.
Right. You do not understand, so you get nervous.
Then because you're nervous, you understand even less.
Exactly. So one of the most important listening skills is staying calm.
That sounds simple, but it is difficult.
It is, but it gets easier with practice.
And the more conversations you survive, the more confidence you build.
Exactly.
You start realizing, maybe I do not understand everything, but I can still communicate.
And that realization changes everything.
Because you stop chasing perfection.
And you start focusing on connection.
I love that.
Connection is more important than perfect grammar or perfect listening.
Definitely.
And in the next part, we are going to go even deeper.
Into what?
Into the small habits that advanced learners use to become great listeners.
Because some people improve much faster than others.
And it is usually not because they are smarter.
It is because they train differently.
Exactly.
So after everything we talked about today, here is the most important thing to remember.
Not understanding native English immediately doesn't mean you are bad at English.
Exactly. It does not mean you are stupid.
It doesn't mean you are too old.
It does not mean you have no talent.
And it definitely doesn't mean you should give up.
Native English is difficult because native speakers speak fast.
They connect words.
They use slang.
They use expressions.
They interrupt each other.
They speak emotionally.
And sometimes they do not even speak clearly.
So if native English feels difficult, that is normal.
Completely normal.
But the amazing thing is that your brain can adapt.
Yes, the more you hear real English, the more familiar it becomes.
At first, everything sounds too fast.
Then you start recognizing a few words.
Then a few phrases.
Then complete sentences.
And one day, without realizing it, you suddenly understand something that used to feel impossible.
Maybe it is a scene in a movie.
Maybe it is a podcast.
Maybe it is a conversation with a native speaker.
And in that moment, you realize you are improving.
Even if the progress felt invisible before.
Because listening improves slowly.
But it improves powerfully.
And the people who become great listeners are usually not the smartest people.
They are the most consistent people.
They keep listening, even when it feels difficult.
They stay curious.
They repeat content.
They notice phrases.
They stop chasing perfection.
And they focus on communication.
Because communication is the real goal.
Not perfect grammar.
Not understanding every word.
Not sounding exactly like a native speaker.
The goal is understanding enough to connect with people.
To laugh at jokes.
To enjoy movies.
To make friends.
To travel with confidence.
To feel comfortable in English instead of afraid of it.
And that is possible for you.
Absolutely possible.
Even if English feels difficult right now.
Even if you still need subtitles.
Even if you still get nervous during conversations.
You are improving more than you think.
And every conversation you have,
Every podcast you listen to,
every movie you watch,
every misunderstanding you survive.
is helping you get better.
So the next time you don't understand something, don't say, I'm terrible at English.
Say, I'm learning.
Say, this is part of the process.
Say, the more I listen, the easier this will become.
Because that is true.
And honestly, if you stay consistent, 6 months from now, you might be shocked by how much you can understand.
You might go back to something that feels difficult today and suddenly realize it feels easy.
That is one of the best feelings in the world.
It really is.
And before we finish, we want to hear from you.
What is the hardest thing for you about understanding native English?
Is it fast speech?
Slang?
Accents?
Movies?
Phone calls?
Leave your answer in the comments because your experience might help someone else feel less alone.
And if this episode helped you, make sure you like, subscribe, and share Talk Easy Daily with someone who is trying to improve their English.
Because the more real English you hear,
The more confident you become,
and the more confident you become,
the easier English feels.
we'll see you in the next episode.
And until then, keep listening, keep learning, and keep going.